Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Claremont Show. I'm Lamont, that is,
I'm Claire.
and we are bringing you some political news for today. And we have a very special guest with us today that is running for Senate. But some of the things we're going to cover today, not only did the No King's Day marches hit big in America, man, they hit worldwide. I guess nobody wants a dictator. I know we don't in America. We'll cover that. They finally caught that crazy ass that was threatening Democrats, freedom, MAGA crazy in Minnesota. We'll discuss that. And we will get insights from someone running for a political office in a very, very red state. All that and so much more. It happens right now on the Claremont Show. Let's go ahead and lock in.
I'm up early for the dealers come out. Everybody is outside till the killers come out. You ain't eating, you just act full. I'm impactful. Dozen funerals in a month. I got that pull. I will give it to niggas in all rap forms. Ignatius out right now on all platforms.
We're going to overcome this. We are absolutely going to overcome this. I know everything in the world looks scary right now. But that's why we have community. That's why we have each other. That is why we stand for each other. And we call out actions that harm us and harm our community. Together, we shall overcome.
The overcomer, ladies and gentlemen, preaching a message of hope and unity. We have him on the show. Candidate for U.S. Senate in Texas, Mike Swanson. How you doing, my brother?
Doing great, man. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are great to have you. Claire, how you feel about having Mike on our show today?
Is this our first white guest? I think it
is.
Oh, snap.
Welcome. No, I'm just kidding.
Weird way to make history, but all right.
No, I mean, I'm trying to think about, I'm like, wait, I think this is, but, welcome. Not that is a huge,
I'm not running that accomplishment to the bank. I'll tell you that. But it's
right.
It's a
Yeah.
good person,
No, I think more what I'm getting at is like the more people we bring on who look different, come from a different state, come from a different background, different ages, the better. Yeah. The more that we're able to reach a wider audience. So yeah, each time someone new comes on that brings just a different perspective in any way, that's gold for us.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
It's gonna be great.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know me and Claire, I'm Lamont, that's Claire. Our motto is the new school meets the old school for a completely new school of political progressive thought. And we like to bring on guests, candidates, regular people who are making big news in any of the social media platforms. And if you want to get on with us, let us know. But you can also go and click our podcast. Link is right there. But leave us a message because we want to hear from you. And we're going to dive right on in with Mike. We'll give him the chance at the end of the video to talk about his beliefs, his campaigns, and the things he wants to do to change America. We think that that's always a great way to end the segment. But when we get him here, we like to throw him into the fire. And so, Mike, we've got a segment we call Politicking While Living in America, or Politicking While Being Black in America. And that's where we air our petty grievances that sometimes can be about MAGA, or it can be something simple as you're walking in the airport and the little kid behind you keeps kicking your ankle because you're walking too slow. Whatever it is, we want to hear it. You get first dibs at that today. Mike, what are you politicking on?
Oh my gosh, man. The massive undertaking that is getting people in MAGA to oversee MAGA. How are you in this position where you are just so completely on this one person completely? We didn't start seeing identity politics like this since Richard Nixon was in office, then turned to Reagan. And now we're in this problem now where we're connecting a specific person to the entire party. We're connecting Bernie Sanders to the left. We're committing Joe Biden to being the entire Democratic Party, Kamala Harris to the entire Democratic Party. We need to stop doing that. We need to go back to a time where the Democratic Party as a whole and the Republican Party as a whole is the collective group. We're not talking about just one person. We're not talking about Mitt Romney, John McCain, Donald Trump. We're talking about this is what our party stands for. This is what we're going to do for the American people. This is what we're going to do to get this job done. That's the pitch there.
Mike,
That's a good one.
In Trump's first term, I remember, and I was in high school then, so
yeah, I was in college. So
I was taking notes, I was learning, but I remember so distinctly being frustrated once he was elected, and he still used us and them language, and he does it now regarding Americans. I was like, I understood it during campaigning, trying to really rally your side, but once he got into office and his tweets were still the crooked Democrats and we are going to prevail. When he was saying we, I could tell he didn't mean me. He didn't mean everyone. And that frustrated the shit out of me because I was still a high schooler. I didn't know much about politics, but I was like, I'm pretty sure you represent the furthest left person and the furthest right person as the president. So you don't get to pick and choose. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm with you, but the problem comes back to one critical error. Even if individuals within a party don't believe in all the same things, everybody has to coalesce if you want to have power in this country under one of the two parties.
Yep.
Either way. And so what happens is you might have some Republicans who at their core, every Republican is not racist. It just so happens that most racists vote Republican.
Yeah.
And you have to make a decision under what umbrella you want to be painted under. It's not right. It's not fair, but it's the reality. And I think that the only way you can break, quote unquote, identity politics is either the policies that are put forth have to be subsequent of representing everyone, or there's going to have to be some more viable parties that are a legit threat to winning power.
Yeah. And to follow up on that, you make a really good point about how, racism even overcomes these boundaries, because back before Cory Booker had his 25-hour stand on the Senate floor, that record was held by Strom Thurmond, who, as most people had pointed out, Strom Thurmond was a Democrat, but Strom Thurmond was also a racist. It existed in both parties. Racist can be in any party. That one is not a partisan issue. But being a decent human being has become such a partisan issue because of that. And it's so crazy to me that even days like today, that is still the case. And, that's a whole other issue to also think about, is that there is this huge problem with us versus them, as Claire pointed out, that we're trying to create such a problem of, and I don't know if you've seen this before, but let me paint the picture for you, is the corporate suit guy sitting in the middle. There is like a Latino brown immigrant on this side of the table with no cookies on his plate. The working white guy that has one cookie on his plate, and the corporate suit's got a mound of cookies on his plate. And he's trying to say that foreigner is trying to steal your cookie. Buddy, you have all the cookies. What are we doing here? Like, it's all distraction. It's all a distraction to keep us from coming together, because they do not want us to know that we outnumber them, that we can take the power back, that we, the people, hold the power.
Exactly. And the more we look left and right, the less we're looking up. Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
So, Claire, what's got you politicking under MAGA control today?
Pivot. It's going to be a little sillier. We're gonna dip into my personal life a little bit here. I am over dating under MAGA. Let me tell you. The amount, and Lamont and I get into this a lot because obviously we are of different genders. We both have talked about how, for whatever reason, right now it's the right is targeting masculinity and is trying to brand masculinity as a right or conservative thing. Therefore, a lot of guys who maybe 10, 20 years ago would have been moderate, or they would have been a rhino Republican, which Lamont and I like to talk about. Not your MAGA, but your like Reagan Republican. They might have been a little bit left. Now there's that echo chamber of if you get started on just wanting to get into lifting, or you get started on like anything that could be masculine adjacent, your algorithm is within a day or two going to suck you into Andrew Tate, into Joe Rogan, into like this manosphere. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of guys who are educated, who should get it, who should have more empathy, and yet identity politics are causing them to start calling women females, to start calling women run through, and, oh, women these days aren't loyal, and these females can't be trusted, and basically painting women in a way that's not good. But then also it's insult culture as well. They want to have relationships, but they want to blame women for why they don't have them.
Yeah.
And so the roundabout logic is just that women like me, who are very outspoken about this stuff, who are not willing to overlook things like basic empathy and connection, and also giving a shit about people, it just means I'm kind of lonely right now.
Yeah.
So all that to say, there's plenty of fish in the sea, but I just hope that the left and progressives, however you want to put it, Democrats, we can figure out a way to make a space for young boys and men who still want to identify with your traditional masculine roles or identity, without it suddenly becoming a hateful, aggressive, almost violent mindset that comes with masculinity that I think a lot of people are trying to push, like Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
So that's my complaint. But hopefully the work we're doing is going to ameliorate that a little bit and fix some things. So
look at, I'm gonna give the first word to you on what she said, Mike, and look at her using those big words, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not gonna tell you what ameliorate means. I'm gonna make you look it up. But look at her education, Claire. You are threatening men who are not confident in themselves by using such language. Ameliorate. It's not like a cuss word. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh goodness, man. Like I heard ameliorate, and I was like, okay, we're bringing out the big stops here. I love it. I was like, where's my dictionary? Hold on. Good job.
There's more where that came from.
I love it. And I'm sure that if I get elected, all these senators on the floor are going to be starting to throw larger words at me. It's like, oh, you just learned that one today too, didn't you? Okay. I see how it goes.
Right.
But like I have a follow-up on the point that you made as well, is that, you know, I was at work a couple days ago, and I mean, I work a lot anyway. One of our regulars came in, and a conversation came up about like, oh, is it gay for a man to wear a bracelet? And I was like, dude, we have bigger problems in the world. Wear what you want. It doesn't matter. Like that is not my first thought. It is not my concern when I look at another man and he's wearing a bracelet. My first thought probably is, oh, that's a cool bracelet.
Right.
That's like a bracelet with charms and whatnot. Is like, dude, I've seen men wear funnier stuff than that. Like red hats to me are way funnier than than wearing a bracelet.
Goofy as hell.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, words written all the way across on this big bill hat. Like, I'm surprised political cartoonists haven't been making like Doug Dimmadome style red hat cartoons with just writing all the way down. Like that, if I was a political cartoonist, that's where my bread and butter would be, is just making fun of that.
The hat
but yeah, I agree on the masculinity part, is that, you know, men need to be a little bit more comfortable with, you know, themselves, about their ability to express themselves like that.
And in fact, sorry, I didn't know to interrupt you, but as a woman, nothing is more attractive to me than a man who is wearing a bracelet, wearing pink, playing with his daughter, going to her dance recitals, doing things that insecure men would say, I don't want to look gay.
Mm-hmm.
When a man does that, that to me is way more attractive, because it tells me that you're not afraid of being labeled a certain way, because your masculinity is already so secure that wearing a dress wouldn't make you not masculine. Wearing pink, wearing a bracelet, having long hair wouldn't make you not masculine, because you already know that masculinity is what you define it. And it's something you've already processed. So if anything, it's attractive. And men, take notes. Lean into your femininity, because if you are a masculine man, it won't make you any less masculine. It'll make you more attractive.
Retweet.
Yeah. My point to Claire is, for me, Mike already hit on what I would have said, and I'm going to say again, I need to find a way, and we need to, as society, find a way to teach not just men, but women too, at an early age. Be confident in who you are and whatever it is that you like, regardless of these past stereotypings of what should be a man and what should be a woman, because those things have evolved over the course of time. Okay. And when you deal with these MAGA men, they want to take things back to a patriarchy. We're not living in a patriarchy time.
And a rigid patriarchy at that, a very rigid patriarchy.
Mm-hmm. Very rigid patriarchy, and we're not living in those times. And so, as Claire said, masculinity or femininity is defined to the subjects and the subjects involved in said relationship should you decide to be with someone. And so my take home to any man who's listening to this, your masculinity is what you want it to be. If you want to wear a pink shirt, be confident in your pink shirt. If you don't want to wear name brand clothes, be confident in not wearing name brand clothes. Find confidence in something that is you. And if other people define it as something different, that's their fault. The right women will see that and know that you're confident in yourself. And even if you look like fucking Flavor Flav or Andrew Tate, they will still find you attractive because you have confidence in self.
Confidence is so hot. It's the hottest thing you can have. So, yes.
The Flavor Flav got me. It got me.
Mike, it's my job to get you guys to laugh at least 3 times. So I done got you twice already. So
I'm a really entertained person. You got me.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings it to my politicking of the day. And it kind of ties into what Mike said already, which is, and Claire a little bit, but it's different. How do we get through to people who are so hooked into MAGA that, number one, they don't research to make sure something is true. And when you do show it to them, they still don't believe it. And let me give you an example. So me and Claire made a video a couple of days ago, and we got a comment. Here's the comment. And what we were talking about was Trump's parade and how he was unhappy and how taxpayers paid for this. So listen to what this guy says. He says, not even true, because taxpayer money wasn't used for the parade. It was a big corporations that donated the cash for the celebration, and other countries has done this all over. Nice try, though, and weak argument. I can't make this stuff up. Okay, so Mike, I replied, of course I replied with the facts. Here are the facts. And embedded in these facts is where I got my facts from. I reply, and I'm gonna have to sit up and look at this. Where is your verified source of what you said? That is exactly how they are able to trick MAGA. When will you learn to fact check? Even if you did, would you change your mind? Here are the facts listed below. Who paid for it? U.S. taxpayer, federal funds. The majority of the funding came from the Department of Defense and federal agencies, including National Park Service. National Park diverted $2.5 million from park entrance fees, originally intended for park maintenance and operation. Number 2, Department of Defense provided tanks, military, foyers, and active duty personnel, all of which added to the cost of some estimates placed DOD related expenses in the $10 to $13 million. I didn't hear back from that guy. Now, hopefully he heard that and it made him think or made him go research, but most likely it didn't. And so what I'm politicking on is MAGA is so entrenched in whatever those fundamental beliefs they have about republicanism, MAGAism, whether it's hate, whether it's cruelty, whether it's fake ass religion, whether it's just Trump and loving his type of criminal activity. It is very hard to get them to break it, and that gets on my nerves, but it always encourages me to continue to fact check and show them the truth, whether they believe it or not. Floor is yours, Mike.
This one really got me because, like, of course, of course, they would so easily believe that the corporate sponsors, you know, they paid for all of it. Absolutely not. No. They probably paid for like a lot of the festivals. They probably paid for like a booth or a table or something like that. But this is way deeper. This is completely and way deeper in it. And I had just learned that the National Park Service lost money because of this parade. I thought it was just all
defunded by Doge.
And that's a whole other thing, is like, I can already see the dominoes falling with the National Park Service, and that hurts me a lot because, you know, nature, our environment, everything like that. Call me a tree hugger if you want. Protect federal wildlife land. That's my big thing. But even so, this stupid argument that I'm just going to call it stupid. It's already left my mouth. Regardless of what happens, any federal military parade is going to involve taxpayer funds. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about that. And it would behoove me to suggest otherwise. That is something that I would even have to call out if I was in a committee hearing and saying that, you know, why are we spending tens of millions of dollars on a parade that's supposed to be for the U.S. Army, which is what our lovely commander-in-chief has said. It's for the U.S. Army. It's not for me. That just happens to be on my birthday. It just happens to be on my birthday. Goodness gracious, man. That's a whole other thing, is like the deflection that Trump does when one thing is occurring and then he says it's for something else.
Because it's convenient.
It's convenient. It's absolutely convenient to say, oh, this parade is for the Army. It's not for my birthday. But, you know, when there was a whole clip that even got leaked of Trump saying and praising how he wanted to replicate what Kim Jong-un is doing in North Korea, of having this military work for him and he having the nation of people worship him at these parades. And I usually hate using the word delicious as this adjective in this situation, but it was so delicious to see that picture of Trump just sitting there during the parade, just like, oh, just sad and whatnot. And I was like, if it was his original intended plan for that parade to be about him, I would hope that was his genuine reaction about how all those pieces just crumbled for him, how his house of cards fell on that moment.
Claire, what do you think?
I mean, Mike, you hit it on the head. I think that he doesn't even have to proclaim that he was inspired by North Korea's display. You can look at side-by-sides of North Korea's very regular displays of gross power.
Force, yeah.
And compare it to what he was trying to do, something that no U.S. president has ever done on that kind of a scale, and especially in their name, on their birthday, associating themselves with it. It's just gross. To me, I'm going to get a little vulgar with it. It's just a dick measuring competition.
It really is.
It's this is a big leader. Trump obviously worships the Putins, and what worships he looks up to.
Yeah.
He pulls plays from their playbooks. And so then no shit, once he gets his second chance in office and he's been sitting around waiting to get back in, some of the first things he does are about building idolatry, because he wants to be the revered Kim Jong-un of his country, but he doesn't realize we're not North Korea. You can't run these things and expect all of us to just sit by and say, hail the leader. We have too many freedoms here for you to get away with that. And so I think it was a beautiful display of, we are not North Korea. We still have these privileges, and before you fucking take them away from us, we are going to protest. And we are going to fight tooth and nail before we become that. And it does make me feel for the countries that don't have the liberties that we currently still have and that he's trying to take away, like peaceful protest. Because what would happen if North Koreans protested the way we did this past weekend?
Oh, yeah, mass murder right there.
We'd just be sent to concentration camps and bye-bye. So all that to say, I'm grateful that we still have those systems in place, but we need to work really freaking hard to make sure that he doesn't get to carry out the image he's trying to and create a nation that bows to him above all else, because no kings. That was how this country started, and we're not straying from that. So 100%.
Big facts, my sister, big facts. And ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. If you want to leave us a voicemail, please do. bit.ly/talk to us, capital T and capital T. And if you want to find out more about our interviewee, Mike, all you got to do is go to the video description. I've got links for him. I got his link tree. I've got his TikTok. I've got all kinds of social media. So if you want to donate to this young man's campaign, please do so. And now we'll get to the subjects that are of the day, that are pressing, that Mike wanted to cover. Those three things. We'll talk about the Minnesota shooter. Mike has a passion and a love for equality for everyone. So he wants to talk about the cuts to SNAP and Medicaid. And one big thing that ruins both parties Mike wants to cover is campaign reform. And we'll start with this news that happened with the shooter. And Mike, this is pertinent to me because I have a news clip I'm going to play for us. But before I do that, I want you to think about this as you get prepared to give us your response to what happened. I worry when I see this kind of behavior because you are a candidate running for office. You have a message that resonates and helps everybody in this country. It's not one specific special interest group that your message represents. You represent a piece of everybody. And please tell me how you feel when you see someone that's trying to actively take out Democratic candidates and what they stand for. We'll get your response right after this.
One man's unthinkable actions have altered the state of Minnesota.
Breaking news here at 11, an end to the massive two-day manhunt in Minnesota. Vance Belter, the man accused of shooting two Democratic lawmakers and their spouses, tonight is in police custody. A huge sigh of relief in Minnesota this evening. The suspected murderer was captured in a wooded area near his home southwest of Minneapolis. I'm Jory Rand.
I'm Sophie Flay. Police say the 57-year-old actually crawled to officers to surrender. He now faces 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder. Belter is seen here being taken into custody and is accused of killing former Democratic Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark at their home early yesterday. He's also accused of wounding State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, who were attacked first. Police say he was wearing a mask and impersonating a police officer and even had a vehicle that looked like a police car. They actually witnessed the shooting at the Hortman home after going to check on them, but say Belter managed to slip away. Hundreds of federal, state, and local law enforcement officers participated in the 2-day manhunt. Tonight, Governor Tim Walz expressed his gratitude for their coordinated efforts.
To Melissa and Mark's family, I cannot fathom your pain and the grief that you're going through. We'll take solace in the memory and the work that Melissa did, and you can rest assured that we will put every ounce of effort that the state of Minnesota has to make sure that justice is served and the individual responsible for this serves the time for the unspeakable act.
Meanwhile, the Hoffmans were each shot several times but are expected to survive. So far, investigators aren't sharing details on a motive, but they say they found a list of 70 potential targets, including prominent lawmakers, community leaders, and abortion rights advocates, along with flyers for the No Kings protests. We've learned Governor Walz was on that list.
One man's...
Wow, Mike, when you hear that, knowing that you're running for office and you see what went down, what does this make you think? And just give us your thoughts and just your raw insight on this horrible, horrific ordeal.
This is probably going to put a major target on my back. Vance Belter is a coward. Plain and simple, Vance Belter is a coward.
All day.
because the game of politics, if we're going back to, you know, the 1770s, 1780s, you know, when your honor,
Well, those would be solutions, right? Getting money.
you know, when your honor is challenged by somebody, you challenge them to a duel. You don't go in and just straight up murder them. You challenge them to a duel, which, you know, funny, in Texas, it's legal for two adults to commit to a duel, even if it's to the death. It's legal.
Wait.
I know, right? It's crazy.
Wait, Mike, is that with swords, guns, fisticuffs?
As far as I'm aware, you can fight. You can legally fight if you two consenting adults agree to it. Now, I don't know about the murder aspect of it, but if you want to fight somebody, you can do it if you consent to it. Welcome to Texas.
Are you serious?
Right,
I mean,
it's a funny part.
Dude, is there whole state laws written by the Looney Tunes, Yosemite Sam and Bugs Bunny, gonna take 10 paces, turn around and shoot each other in the fucking what? Come on, man.
There's your third laugh for you, buddy. But you know, back to the point. Like Vance Bolter is a straight up coward. It obviously shocked me to wake up. You know, I think it was the 14th, was it? It shocked me to wake up and hear that news, that essentially what amounts to terrorism has occurred. He was doing it to advance a political agenda, and by definition, that is terrorism. I cannot wait for the day that they are able to legally call it what this act was. There is no justification for it whatsoever. And in fact, you know, I can agree that, you know, politicians and candidates have this target on our backs for being in the eye of the public. It's a risk that, you know, candidates and elected officials have to take, because that's what it means to serve the public. You know, you're going to have actions that may not represent 100% of the people that are in your constituency. And unfortunately, a lot of elected officials are doing actions that represent, you know, 10% or less of their constituency, all the way down to fractions and fractions of a percent. But it's something that, you know, you have to commit to the idea that, you know, how we fight for our country, how we choose to show up is a huge matter. And running for office is one of those things. I understand, especially in a state like Texas that has concealed carry, has open carry. I recognize that somebody could do the same thing that Vance Bolter did to Melissa Hortman and John Hoffman. Someone could absolutely do that to me. But the whole overarching aspect here is that I signed up to do that. I agreed for that to possibly happen, only for the sole fact that I'm not going down without a fight. I am not going down without a fight. I don't care if this is a rhetoric fight, a political fight, you know, as long as somebody doesn't walk up to me on the street and just start throwing hands, you know, that's a whole different situation. Which, you know, I'm the youngest of three brothers, and my oldest brother was in wrestling in high school, and I was his practice doll.
Oh, Lord.
So I might know how to fight back. I have reversed some moves that even shocked him, but because I've grown up under him as his brother, I know how to fight back. But that's the whole thing. I'm not running this race solely just to get my name out there. I'm doing it because it's the justified cause of wanting to do right by the people of Texas, to do right by my community, and give them the representation that they deserve. And I'm going to go down with a fight to do it.
Well said. Well said. Claire, tell us what you think about this whole situation, and consider giving respect to time, so that we can get Mike through all the subjects he wants to do. But just tell us what you think as someone who's in their mid-20s, you know, working on a master's degree, just getting ready to kind of start your career as an adult with what you're going to do. When you see this, what does it make you think?
Well, it's just shocking how basically how close we all are to danger, and the way that we all have to just keep going. Violence is a petty, low threat to serious. It to me tells me that you don't have any other way to express yourself. You don't have any better way to defend your position. So you're resorting to the simplest, easiest, most barbaric manner, which is to hurt someone physically. I think that if he had something to say and he really felt he could have fought back politically, then he would have done that. But clearly, he was just a coward who wanted his position known, but not done the right way. So I commend you, Mike, for sticking through it, for putting yourself out there, especially in a red state, especially with the gun laws that are in place. I think it's sad that people are going to have to be martyrs in certain circumstances or potentially. But at the same time, we're lucky that there are people like Mike who are willing to put themselves out there for the good of the rest of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. And Mike, I'll say this about you. I commend your courage too. And let me just say that as individuals who support progressive movements and us being kind of in that new social media space, I think it's equally as important that we also look after ourselves too, because if we're punching through, we could become targets. And we feel like we have a duty to be right there beside you, preaching a message of equality. Now, I hope when you win this Senate seat that you will get in office and be very didactic about the things that need to happen in order to see a better space in America. And one big issue that no one wants to address, because usually the Republicans have too much control, we've been warned about this type of threat. We've been warned about homegrown, domestic, white supremacist terrorists over and over and over again, and nobody ever turns up the heat on them. I tell Claire and anyone, the only thing that's going to change people's behavior is consequence.
Yeah.
They're not getting enough consequences to deter the behavior. And I'll say this as quickly as I can. This gentleman had, well, I'm not even going to call him gentleman. I'm going to call him Skeletor from He-Man. Go get your ass fried.
Lex Luthor type.
This guy had records and social media of him being in anti-LGBT groups, anti-minority groups. He was a pastor, and he would go cross seas preaching that hate to LGBTQs, minorities, and what may have you was what you should be doing. And apparently that wasn't working. So now you had to really go out and commit this crime. I say that to say to everyone, we need to put pressure on legislators to call out domestic terrorism in whatever form it's in, Black, white, Latina, whatever it is, because that has been the number one threat to prosperity, equality, and freedom to people outside of the federal budget that, for whatever the reason, the government seems to just forget about putting the attention on.
Especially if they're white. Especially if they're white. He was a troubled soul. He had mental health issues, but they're not willing to invest in mental health resources. They just want to use that so that they can avoid actually creating legislation that would avoid these instances in the future. So
yeah, because their corporate sponsors don't want to deal with it.
Right.
By the way,
Exactly.
They don't want to deal with it. Also, by the way, adding didactic up near ameliorate.
Oh Lord Jesus! I had done forgot about this. Oh God, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. This guy needs to be upset. He's got moxie, ladies and gentlemen. The best interviews on TV could come from this young man because he's able to take the big and make it kind of small, which a lot of Democrats can't do, and we need that. Let us know what you think about Mike. Leave us a message, ladies and gentlemen. Leave us a message. Subscribe to the channel. Mike's info is in the video description. Make sure you go donate to him, and let's get him to his subject matters of the week. First one we'll take you on, Mike, are those crazy budget cuts that are in this big ugly bill. I got a video for you, and then we'll let you get first word on what you think should be happening and what you will do once you get in office as a senator. Here we go.
$300 million to reimburse local law enforcement for presidential protection related to activities by the president. $300 million. Donald Trump has played golf 24 out of his first 99 days. That is a quarter of the days. So you are funding a bill that does not give any money for natural disasters, that does not repay towns, cities, states for the tremendous amount of money that they have paid out for our immigration system to operate? No. And that's red districts too. But we are going to make sure Donald Trump can play golf, because that's where our $300 million of FEMA money should go to. It's a disgrace. And it's a disgrace that none of my Republican colleagues will speak up against this money for golf, against the obvious and egregious due process violations.
So, Mike, along with the Medicaid, because I just had to give you that so people can understand exactly why we're gerrymandering the budget, in essence, to help Trump in ways that don't need to be helped. And here's a quick factoid for you, Mike. Cuts in the one big beautiful bill that have already passed the House. We're sitting at the Senate, which is where Mike will have his office. Medicaid, $793 billion cut over 10 years. Wow. SNAP, $267 billion cut in 10 years. Medicare, pay as you go. Rules could trigger automatic cuts that equal $490 billion over a decade. Floor is yours, Mike. I just had to give you the facts.
So there's so many facets to how this response has to go. And the overarching theme here is that Republicans are no longer the fiscal conservative party.
Well, Mike, that begs the question, were they ever really that, or was that the smoke and mirror for the people to believe while secretly behind closed doors, they did socialism for the rich and corporations?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Like, I can't spend too long thinking about the Republicans and their actions, because we know that it's a front. We know that it's a front for what they're trying to do. The message that they're selling to their voters is not the meaning of their actions. They are doing this solely because they want to keep their corporate sponsors making money, so that money flows back to their campaign to keep them elected in office. And we'll get more to that as we get towards the campaign finance section. But overall, they're not the fiscally conservative party that they say they are. The huge issue here is that their concerns about fraud, waste, and abuse, thank you, their concerns with fraud, waste, and abuse do not financially line up to how much they are trying to cut. And the bad thing is that the Senate had just released their first version of their amendments to this bill that take the cuts farther. There is no one in their right mind that is looking at fraud, waste, and abuse to say that illegal immigrants or undocumented migrants are taking the benefits away from the American people. They can't even access it. So what fraud, waste, and abuse are we talking about? Oh, they have their social security numbers. They have individual taxpayer ID numbers, which separates them from the ability to get those benefits. There is not enough fraud, waste, and abuse to rectify hundreds of billions of dollars over the next decade, causing a $7 trillion deficit. We're already over $30 trillion, over $33 trillion. They have been kicking the can so far down the road that the generations after me are still going to be paying for it. That's another reason why I jumped in this race. I am so tired of older generations that are getting elected into office, and the corporate sponsors that they have are kicking this can down the road for people in my generation and generations after me to pay that back. They are completely squeezing the resources out of the world here. And that's being seen in these cuts as well, to try to pay back these cuts that they're doing. And it's still not a balanced budget, and it's still contributing trillions of dollars to the deficit. They're like the same thing that Representative Goldman said, that, you know, we have all this money to pay for Trump to go play golf for over a quarter of his term. And it's the same thing that he did on his first term too. And I'll say that Biden also spent a lot of money going to Delaware every weekend. So, you know, just so that the conservatives that are going to attack me on that, I know Biden spent a lot of money going to Delaware every weekend. But he also went to Camp David a lot. He also was using the resources that the federal government has for him to get away from society. He wasn't just spending it specifically to take that money and take it back to Mar-a-Lago to where it could feed back into the Trump organization.
Exactly.
So the Republicans aren't fiscally conservative. They are just taking taxpayer money where they can find it and how they can squeeze it and putting it back into their own pockets.
Exactly. I will add to what you said, Mike, about how they are doing these type of cuts and pretending that there's these magical fraud, abuse, waste. But when you do the deep digging about who's been defrauding Medicaid, Medicare, the kind of the health companies and the pharmaceutical companies that have done this, guess who they vote? The Republican Party.
Yeah.
Majority of them vote for the Republican Party, ladies and gentlemen. And the other thing Mike hit on, that is a hidden tax on people, because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, before I pass to Claire, Republicans know where all the money really resides. Trickle down has not worked. It's been proven. There's statistics to back this up. Middle class and poor people have just gotten eroded. But what wants to happen is for those people to pay for all the bills. And that's what Trump's tariffs were supposed to be, to help substantiate this big, beautiful bill. Everybody has to pay an increased tax on the goods coming in to help fund this big, beautiful bill, until a lot of people in the world say, America, you ain't the only game in town. Having said that, Claire, you get a bite at this apple.
I want to talk about something called projection. We see this psychologically happening when people are lying. So what does projection look like? It's when I feel guilty about the fact that I am, let's say, cheating on my spouse. And I go, and all of a sudden, all I can talk about is how my spouse is a cheater. And let me go through your phone. All of a sudden, the spotlight's on him. It's not on me. And then if for some reason he starts guessing or seeing that I maybe am cheating, I'm going to say, you're just saying that because I accused you of it. You're just trying to come back on me. So this is what the Trump administration does. This is what they did with election stealing. They wanted us to be thinking about, oh, well, if we do anything fraudulent in the election, they can't come at us because we were the original election stealer accusers. We were the ones who brought this up in the first place. So it's just going to look like them pointing the finger back. Same shit with the way that they're spending their money. They tell on themselves. They're talking all about wasteful spending because they know they're wasting so much money. Trump and Doge wants to come in and project all this bull crap onto the working class, the middle class, even the upper middle class, the people who don't really have the time or resources to fight against them. And then they're also doing exactly what they're saying they're trying to stop. And that's why they have this system of hypocrisy in place. Because if we deflect and if we put the attention on someone else, if we blame the immigrants, if we blame the middle class, if we blame this person and that person, they're not going to be looking at us and the corporations by our side who are benefiting from us tanking the economy and then allowing them to buy up everything for cheap, because none of the middle and working class can pay for houses if the economy crashes. But guess who can?
People who still have the money. So it's all one big whirlwind of bullshit. But everything that you're saying, 100%. And the hypocrisy and the projection tells us that they're liars. So thanks for giving it away, MAGA. If nothing else, thank you for revealing yourself.
To close this, the only thing I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that at the end of the day, you as a voter still have the power to curb some of this behavior. I need you to start thinking critically. I need you to start getting involved in local elections in your towns, your municipalities, so that you can kind of understand some of these things we do when it comes to budgets and how they work, so that you can have a say in how local money that comes from the federal government is allocated in your community fairly, and not always given to some big business that moves in, claims they're going to bring you 1.5 million jobs, when you could take that same amount of money, give it to the businesses and the communities and the child care centers that are already there, and back up and promote that community. So that's all I got to say about that one. Let us know what you think. Drop us a line, bit.ly/talk to us, and we'll get Mike on his last subject. But before we do, please go to his campaign. His links are all in the video description. You might see some of this on this channel because he gets a copy of this video, because we want him to remember us when he blows up in that Senate office, because it's going to happen. So, Mike, this brings us to campaign reform. And campaign reform is something that cuts a lot of ways. And I got another video for you from a creator that I know who this has kind of been his wheelhouse to talk about. And there's some issues with trying to reform campaign finances. But I think that we can all agree that the biggest thing that warped this even worse was that Citizens United Supreme Court ruling that kind of made this super PAC issue worse than what it is. So take a look at this, Mike, and you get the alley-oop. I'm Kobe, you Shaq, or if you like Shaq or whatever, we can switch it. Here we go.
Well, those would be solutions, right? Getting money out of politics. I mean, Citizens United sold the country to the highest bidder and took whatever small amounts of power kind of voting or the popular opinions had out of the hands of the people, where the constituents are actually the donor class and the citizenry are just used, basically. And so getting money out of politics is a necessity for anything to improve, but good luck. It's enshrined in Citizens United. It would take the people benefiting from the money in politics to get it out of politics, and that's just not really going to happen. I mean, I just don't see that as being possible. And again, this is why it's one thing to have a solution in a theory. You know, it's one thing to talk about a solution. It's another thing to have it implemented. And there are easy solutions to all of our problems, but there's no political willpower or political momentum to do any of that.
So Mike, my buddy, feels like this is a hopeless issue. And for his age group, it might be. Yeah. It just might be. But tell us what you envision, what you think you can do to get a movement going to change this, and what vision you have to get people to support you getting reform, at the very least reform, if not complete change in campaign financing.
Yeah, so I think that video really spelled it out well enough. Is there's no political willpower to fix the problem. The whole reason that it became a Supreme Court case was specifically just by taking advantage of the system. You know, prior to 2010, when that Supreme Court ruling was taken out, you know, you could still do that exact same thing. It just enshrined it into effective law. So now the challenge and the hurdle that we have to overcome this now has gotten a little greater, now that we have to do a whole constitutional amendment, 2/3 of each chamber of the House and the Senate, and then 3/4, 38 states have to agree to take it back out and enshrine a constitutional amendment to say that corporations are not people specifically. And that's the whole problem, is that corporations are people. People can spend their money. Money is free speech. The whole transitive property that led us there. And now the solution that we have here is creating the political willpower. I am so blessed to know so many other candidates that are taking the exact same pledge as I am, to not take lobbyist money, to not take corporate PAC money, and to not take money from people like George Soros, Mark Cuban, Wilkes Dunn, and Ferris Wilkes, all these billionaires that are controlling our politicians, that have the money specifically to pay into super PACs, to create independent expenditures, to create ads that play on your TV, that play on your grandma's TV, saying that I am the devil, I'm the Antichrist, yada, yada, yada. Now, somehow I'm sure John Cornyn's office is going to take that, and these Republican billionaires are going to say, he admits to being the Antichrist. I'm not. Okay. Like that. And that's a whole other part of the issue. It is, taking that media out of context because they have the money to do it. You have to watch the full length of interviews like these to get to know who I am as a person, even though I try to make it clear as day off of the bat. So to follow into the second half of your question is, I am, again, running this because I care about my community. I care about this earth being able to get passed down into future generations. I don't have kids myself, but I have friends who have kids. I know people who have kids, and I want their kids and their grandkids after that to still have a world to live in. I don't want them choking on toxic gas. It's crazy. Yes, Lamont.
You want to see someone who has a kid?
Yeah.
Well, look no further than me. Here's mine.
Yes. I love that you have this clip ready of her. This is perfect.
There you go.
I love
Continue,
it.
Mr. Mike.
But it's that exact thing, Lamont. Like, even for your child, even though, you may not live in Texas, but that's the whole thing is like when you get in the Senate, sure, you're representing your state, but you're creating laws that affect everybody in the country. Mm-hmm. You have been given such a huge position of power to take care of the country, to take care of the earth, to take care of how the United States acts to the world. Our reputation has already gone down the gutter because of what's going on with this administration. I can only fear what else is going to happen between now and 2027 that is going to have to create a bigger amount of work. So that's the thing. The thing that people have to decide now between now and their primary election, my primary is March 3rd, 2026. People have to decide between now and then who is the person that they're going to have to stand up to fight these interests that are fighting against them, against their interests. I'm here to represent the people that live in San Antonio, that live as far west as El Paso to Orange County on the east side, from as far up, in the Panhandle all the way down to Brownsville, Texas on the Mexico border. I'm here for everybody in this border. I'm here for everybody. I want to go to all 254 counties. I want to show up. I sent out an email on my newsletter just yesterday that detailed some of these conversations that we had today and saying, these are the reasons. These are the people who live their life in such a way that have lost their life or have gotten arrested, like Senator Alex Padilla, that got detained. These are the reasons why I show up, because this is not normal. It is crazy to me that, we're allowing this to happen, and people that are supporting this presidency are supporting these actions. This is not normal. And so it's pertinent. It's important that we stand up and say, this is not normal. We have to go against the grain on this one. We have to put people in office like me, like many of the other candidates I know, that are actually here to get the work done.
Facts. Big facts. Claire, what is your rebuttal to what Mr. Mike said?
No rebuttal here. I 100%, I love your message. And I think our next stage of politicians, whatever that's going to look like, hopefully we can get a whole flood of y'all, like-minded people like you, and hopefully the messaging that the Trump administration gets us fired up enough, anyone who isn't MAGA, so that we can make some serious change very quickly. That actually is something that when Trump was originally elected, my sister and I were sitting there, we were sad. We were like, what do we do with all of this pain and this frustration? How is it that a Black woman who is the most qualified that you can possibly be has lost to a felon and a alleged rapist, well, a convicted rapist? How is this possible, and what do we do? And in a weird way, the optimism that we came up with then was, maybe this will show people how bad it can be. Mm-hmm. Maybe us being in this limbo area of, well, it's not bad, but it's not the best this country could be. Maybe we need to see how bad it could be in order for people to get fired up about the America that we were founded as, a free place, and then also the America that we could be, which is a place where everyone is represented, where everyone gets due process, where the law applies equally to everyone, and where the amount of money that you have doesn't determine whether or not you can make an impact at a state level, on a national, federal level, because that's corruption. That is corruption, is a system in which only those who already have power and already have resources can gain more. America was founded on equal opportunity. And some of the protests I saw over the weekend were really beautiful. And a lot of people who maybe wouldn't have waved the flag around in the past couple of years are now doing it in protest of the exact administration and the country itself, the government itself, which is, to me, the most American thing you can do.
Yeah.
Fight a government, an American government that isn't representing you.
Yeah.
And that goes down to a lot of the people who are on the far right who claim to be patriots. You're not a real patriot if you will not criticize your government, regardless of who's in power at the time, for misrepresenting the American people. That's what makes us patriots, is that we will call out the bad behavior and the good behavior. So thank you for that. And I'll drop.
My follow-up, and then we'll get Mike to the youngest in charge of this show's question for her age group and what she's thinking today, is, Mike, that I'm going to say something, Mike, that you can never say on the campaign trail. But follow me, because it'll all come back. America voting for Trump was a complete dereliction of duty to what America is supposed to stand for. And they were allowed to do that because of what campaign finances allow people to do. One of the most polled, successful campaign spent ads was the lesbian thing, the gay and lesbian trans thing, about how Kamala was going to have these gays and lesbians all over the place and that she was paying for reconstructive surgery in jail. Those were some of their most voted on ads that was loved by the American people. And one thing I think Democrats have got to quit saying, and you just said it, because I think the American people, especially MAGA, love it. But I think if you position this correctly, everyone will love it, but you just got to position it correctly. And Mike, you said this: what Trump is doing is not normal. It's abnormal. Problem is, Mike, a lot of people voted for not normal. Yeah. But the issue with those people that voted for not normal, you're getting not normal that is hurting you too. You're getting not normal that harms America. If you want not normal, you vote for Mike, who's not taking campaign PAC money. That's not normal. You vote for someone who says corporations need to be taxed so that they can pay for the goods and services that this country has helped build for them. That's abnormal. You need to vote for that. You need to vote for someone who's not only going to tax them, but put laws in place so that they can't pass that tax increase back to you as a consumer. That's not normal. So we need to quit saying that what Trump is doing is not normal, which it is, but a lot of people voted for that. Now, if you can make that they're voting for the abnormal that is beneficial to the people, then we got something. And I think you'll get some of those MAGA voters along with the Bernie voters, along with the AOC voters. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. And that's a big thing that, even as I was devising my campaign plan, is messaging and how I break down these issues to people is a major thing, because obviously Texas, I can't really vouch that Texas is a deep red state. It's been constricted to be a red state. Mm-hmm. There are more Democrats here in Texas, and that's the reason why they're so concerned about it, by suppressing the vote. There was one polling location in Harris County, where Houston is, and there's counties across Texas where one polling location counts for multiple counties. You want to talk about voter suppression? Thank you, Greg Abbott, for doing that, because that's where the problem lies. Like, once you allow them into power to a point where they can start constricting to hold it, they're going to keep it, because that's the exact thing that's happening right now. Is, you know, the aides to Trump have already suggested to Abbott, make your congressional districts more gerrymandered ahead of the elections. Like,
right.
it's, again, I don't know how many times every time I'm in these interviews that say it's crazy to me, because it is, that, you know, people are just like so out of their minds when we look at this and say, oh yeah, that's perfectly cool. Yeah, that's fine. That like, you know, can I get another mimosa for my brunch, please? Bro, we got bigger problems to deal with here.
Right.
Like, okay, have your brunch first, but let's talk about how we're going to solve these issues and how we are going to put this to people on their side and on our side, even, to get the most people to understand what's going on. Yeah, as Percy is saying here, thank you for verifying that, Percy. I appreciate that. That, you know, Republicans want to stay in power, but they have to do it by making a legal means to do that. You know, legal by the ways the system is built.
Exactly.
And for the messaging part of it entirely is, you know, how do I make my platform palatable to a MAGA Republican and you know, I've just been working and got my push cards printed. Like, there's a couple things here, like how I've messaged some of things. Workforce development is one of them that I play tested.
Yeah.
You say, I want to create jobs, they suddenly open their ears because they care about jobs. You know, I like the marketing on Medicare for all, but healthcare for all does just as good. Because it's not an immediate turnoff and saying, okay, how are you going to do healthcare for all? You know, supporting our veterans. I'm a military brat. I grew up in a military family. Like, I would have loved to have stayed in one place my entire life, but I was born into a family that, you know, moved around a lot. And supporting our military is a huge thing. And those are topics that are super easy for me to translate to conservatives, because those are ideals of American patriotism to them.
Right.
So, you know, I've been working on that. That's a huge thing that I'm trying to accomplish in my campaign. Not only to just try to win Republican voters, but also get them to see how our ideas are actually helpful.
Yes.
Well said, Mike. Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. Post your comments. Leave us a message. Mike sounds like he's the type of guy. He's already got my vote, because I need someone to stand up to Governor Hot Wheels gerrymandering the vote, which is another way, ladies and gentlemen, that they cheat. Gerrymandering is cheating. And oftentimes they do it in North Carolina. And oftentimes you have it where they gerrymander so hard. A lot of these states have Republican legislatures and Republican judicial branches, and they say no. The judicial branch in these states say no. So, ladies and gentlemen, get to know this gentleman and go give him your vote. Show him some support and love. His link is in description. Claire, what is the pressing question that people in your generation have for our candidate today?
Well, I was more so. I want to hear a little, and you actually just hinted at this, but I want to hear a little bit about, as a white male, did you grow up mostly in Texas or kind of everywhere? Truly everywhere?
Pretty much everywhere. So I grew up mostly along the Pacific coast. So I spent time in Washington State, Idaho, Alaska. And then we went down to Illinois. So I was in Illinois for a number of years, went to college in Illinois. And then I continued the trend of moving around, even though I wasn't in the military. And then, you know, I landed here, and it's been great so far. So,
awesome. Yeah. So my main question for you, and I get this question a lot, actually. I'm also a child of a veteran. My dad's 100% disabled veteran. And both my parents worked for the federal government. So a lot of people will wonder, even just looking at me, were you raised with these values in place? And if not, how did you come to find them? And so that's kind of what I want to get at here is, What was your upbringing like in terms of the values that were instilled in you? Were your parents Republicans? Were they Democrats? My parents were Republicans, actually.
Yeah.
And they switched when Trump came to power. So I would just kind of love to hear how your journey got you here, and if you were always kind of there, or if you did any big switches at any point in your upbringing.
So I really, really, really appreciate this question, because it's something that I do think about quite a bit. My parents were not political. They never talked to me about politics. They were never really involved in it. So I spent a lot of my upbringing finding my own way. So a lot of it came down to, my empathy got taught to me because there were people that bullied me and I didn't like it. And it told me that, it's better to be nice to other people. Like, it's much easier to be nicer to other people. You have to work at hating people. So I can only imagine what people on MAGA's side are doing by having to live in such effort to do that.
Must be exhausting.
It must be exhausting to keep that persona up, because I can tell you, I enjoy being good to other people. Like, if I had my way with it, I wouldn't be working for private for-profit enterprise at all. Like, my dream would be to work in nonprofit and serve my community, which is, again, why I'm running. I'm not looking to get into politics to have the insider information to do insider trading, because I don't I have an IRA. That's it. And it's not even 5 figures yet, to put it that way. And that I haven't invested in it in years either. But to the point of your question, I spent a lot of my time growing up finding my own way. That I had to take the lessons I was learning from growing up and finding my way on how to deal with people, all the while, growing up in a military family and my dad being deployed a lot. That, my mom was trying to raise 3 boys as they were graduating through school and doing activities and meeting friends and doing all this other stuff. I had a generally good upbringing, and it led me to being this way. That I was looking at this, and then, as I was discovering my sexuality in the teenage years, because apparently Republicans and conservatives think that people aren't thinking about that young. Trust me, they are. Like, puberty is about the time that people start thinking about that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And it's, again, crazy. And then the way I was treated socially, that was a big thing. And it just reinforced those values that I had learned earlier, that it's easier to be nicer to people. And for some reason, empathy is a liberal trait, apparently. Caring about other people is a liberal trait. So I'm glad about where I've ended up, because it makes life a lot easier to think what I would do for another person versus what I would do for myself.
Wow. Well said. So, Mike, now we are ready to get you on the off ramp. And first and foremost, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming here, being you, letting us get to know you and spend this kind of in-depth time knowing you. But now is the crunch time, Mike. Now is when I turn on the NBA shot clock. Except for our shot clock is the NBA clock times 2. So you got give us your 48-second elevator speech that you would give to someone to get to know you, so that they can vote for you and garner your support on behalf of them in Washington, D.C.
My fellow Americans. No, I'm kidding.
That always works.
I know, right?
I'm locked in.
Perfect. All right. I've got you hooked. So my name is Mike Swanson. I'm a candidate running for U.S. Senate. I've grown up in a military family, and I'm a former union member and still proud to have that trait in me to fight for other people that create a collective benefit. And that's a huge thing that we have to work together in this campaign, to come together, to work together and fight for each other. Because at the end of the day, nobody's coming to save us. But who else to save us but ourselves collectively together? That's the motive of my campaign, is to bring us all together, not in a hippie communistic way, but to make sure that we are getting the best and fairest shake at the table that we built. It's about time that we had a seat at it. So if you're like me and you want to see better policies, that you don't want corporations to continually control us day in and day out, to make sure that we have a fair standard of living, that we have a fair shot at getting better in this world. That is what I'm here for, and this is the movement that I am helping to create that is going to be our movement.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, his link is in description. That is a preview of some of the things you'll see when you check this brother out. I hope we wasn't so evil to you that you won't come back over here to the Claremont Dark Side show, because we do have another show we do called Claremont After Dark, where we get a little darker, but we brought you to the daytime show.
Okay, cool. Okay. You mean this wasn't the dark time?
No, this was not the dark side.
All right.
We're keeping it very, very tame in the daylight.
Exactly. Please subscribe. Please support this young man and everything he's trying to do. His links are in description. He will have a copy of this video. And Mike, you've got our support. You've got our help. We've got other prospective candidates running that we want to connect you with that watch us, and we hope that they'll reach out to you too. And that's going to do it for us on the Claremont Show. And until that next sexy as hell Claremont Show, check us out on TikTok, YouTube, and the podcast. We're out.